Alright, so Season 7 just wrapped up the other week with the release of Sorcery. But the question is, how does this season compare to all the rest, and what's the best season altogether? That's what we're gonna be answering today by ranking all the seasons from worst to best. Now, obviously some of the seasons have more characters than the others, so the way we're gonna be looking at it is in terms of quality per character, basically seeing which season is more worth it in terms of price. And without any further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, coming in at last place on our list is the very first season introduced in the game, that of course being Season 1. Now, I don't think there's honestly any season that is completely awful, but out of all of them, Season 1 stands out as the most underwhelming one. You have characters like Jiraiya, Hiruzen, Tsunade, Tobirama or Orochimaru who aren't necessarily bad characters, they just don't really bring anything exciting into the game in my opinion, or any must-have jutsu that make them worth it compared to the base game characters. Again, I'm not saying they are all bad, there's definitely some jutsu that they offer that are viable or fun to use. Tobirama's ultimate comes to mind as a pretty cool jutsu for example. On the other hand, you do have some characters that are pretty good in my mind. Both Minato and Hashirama are genuinely decent characters, and Minato himself is actually really unique and his jutsu are still very viable today. Especially Flying Raijin Jutsu, which is an absolute menace in Flag Battle. But if there's any character in the season that really stands out, it's the two Uchihas, Obito and Madara. Obito is an absolute defensive force, and his Kamui Climax, a jutsu that makes you completely invincible for 5 seconds, is still arguably one of the best defense class jutsus in the game. Madara himself provides probably the most popular range type jutsu out there, that being Majestic Destroyer Flame, which is a jutsu definitely worth using and the best fire style jutsu out there by far. Even with all of the cool stuff that the lighter characters provide, the average is unfortunately brought down by the characters mentioned at the start, making Season 1 the weakest in my opinion. Alright, let's move down the list to number 6, which is occupied by Season 3. And here I would personally say that we take quite a big jump in quality and the ranking from here, and that was actually pretty hard to do. Having Season 3 this low on the list was definitely not an easy choice, and I know that a lot of people aren't gonna be happy with it, since it has some of the most popular characters in the game in Chisui and Last Battle Naruto. I personally love both of these characters, and they are absolute standouts in their respective classes, especially Shisui, who I think is genuinely one of the coolest characters in the game, providing some of the most unique jutsu and requiring skill out of the player to be able to pull them off successfully. Last Battle Naruto is also no character to scoff at, having one of the most powerful healing jutsus in Rebirth, which literally brings back characters from the dead and one of the best ultimates for heal type 6 pass Massive Resent Shuriken. Unfortunately, all of the good that these two characters do is kind of brought down by the other side of this season, by which I mainly mean Double Sharingan Kakashi and Neji. This version of Kakashi is probably the laziest DLC character in the whole game, with both of his jutsu being reskins of older jutsu with slight adjustments. Not to say that the jutsu aren't good, they are actually pretty meta viable, just unoriginal. Neji on the other hand is just kind of underwhelming in my opinion, not really bringing any jutsu that make you feel super excited if you know what I mean. The final character in this season is Karma Boruto, who's definitely on the good side of this season, offering some of the best jutsu in the game for a base battle. The only downside to him being the fact that his ultimate isn't exactly very fun to use. But even with him being a good character, it still doesn't save the season from ending up second to last. Next up on the list we have Season 2, which is a season that brings some of the highest highs with some of the lowest lows. On the bad side of the spectrum, you have a character like Onoki, who is by far my least favorite character in the game. If you don't know, both of Onoki's jutsus are very similar. One of them slows down the enemy team and the other speeds up your allies. That is it. Yes, it has some other effects and I know it can be viable in Flag Battle, but wow, talk about a horrifyingly boring set of jutsu. This season also provides characters like Ino, who even though has one of the most powerful healing jutsus in the game, is also pretty damn boring, as the jutsu literally requires you to stay out of action to use it. She does have a pretty cool mind controlling jutsu that recently got a buff, but her ultimate is literally the same jutsu just multiplied by 4, once again not really a lot of effort put into it. With all that being said, the rest of the characters in the season go from pretty good to absolutely awesome. Characters like Haku, Killer Bee, Might Guy, and Mei offer either really good jutsu or something unique the game hasn't seen before. Zabuza is another absolutely great character whose jutsu are still some of the most popular among defense types. But where the season really shines in my opinion is in its Boruto versions of Naruto and Sasuke. Both of these characters could have arguments made their way towards being the best DLC character period, with Hokage Naruto being an absolute killing machine, having some of the straight up deadliest attack style jutsus out there and an amazing ultimate as well. On the other side, Sasuke is one of the most fun characters to use in this game, providing jutsu that are still some of the most unique ever even after all the other DLCs. As I said, this season is a bit of a mixed bag, but I do think the good characters outweigh the bad ones. Hey, just before we move on, if you happen to be enjoying the video, then please consider liking or subscribing if you want to see more content like this. It helps out the channel a lot and is greatly appreciated. Thanks! Now let's see where the rest of the seasons rank. Let's move on to number 4 on this list, where we finally have a more recent entry, that being Season 6. This season offers some really great characters all around, with all of them having something good to offer. Would I say any of them are the best character in the game? No, I personally wouldn't, but it doesn't mean they're not great. The first character of this season is reanimated Minato, whose jutsus have quickly become some of the most popular among defense types, and for good reasons too. Because in terms of crowd control and area control, there's really no other character that stands out to this version of Minato. Unfortunately, his ultimate is a bit of a letdown and could do with some buffs. The second character introduced in this season is Ten Tails Obito, who is a pure attack type, focusing on nothing else but dealing massive amounts of damage, and it has to be said he's pretty damn good at it. Both of his base ninjutsu not only deal great damage, but they feel like they're powerful too, which for a game like this is super important. His ultimate is once again a bit underwhelming, maybe not as much as Minato's, but there's still definitely better choices out there for attack types. Finally, Kaguya is the last character in this season. Her first jutsu is very similar to Baryon Bullet Barrage, and even though it's not exactly original, it does a pretty good job for heal types. Her second one though is kind of trash, being this projectile that you can barely see, and it honestly feels more like a ninja tool. Her ultimate though is probably the coolest ultimate in the game. It transports you and any enemies within range into a different dimension where you basically become super overpowered. Not only is this ultimate really cool, but it's also very meta viable, as taking the enemies out of the game for up to 30 seconds can be game changing in something like base or flag battle. As you could probably tell, all of these characters have something in common, that being that they have two really good jutsu and one that's not exactly great. Nonetheless, all of them are still top tier characters in my opinion, which earns them this spot on the list. Alright, moving into our top 3, we have the season that just recently wrapped up, that of course being Season 7. This season is pretty similar to Season 6 in the sense of basically only having really decent characters, plus also added with the fact that it has one of the best characters altogether, that obviously being Karma Progression Boruto. I personally think this version of Boruto is almost inarguably the best range type out there. Having base jutsu that not only deal brutal damage, but are also useful in basically any situation, added with his ultimate, which is the best transformation ultimate in the game, and you have what I would consider a must-have character. The next character in this season is the young version of Gaara, who is another very good defense type. I wouldn't necessarily call him broken or anything, but his jutsu are a great addition to the game, especially Sand Tsunami. He's also the first young version of a character we got to have, so it's gonna be interesting to see if they introduce any other like him. The final character of this season and the newest character altogether is of course Sasori. I made a separate video on Sasori a week ago, so if you want to know what I think about him and his jutsu in more detail, then you can watch that. But to quickly summarize, I think he's a good character, even though he's probably the weakest in this season. He still offers some really cool and unique jutsu, and apart from his ultimate, they're all really fun to use. Overall, Season 7 was a great time for the game, and I think we have a lot to be excited in terms of a basically confirmed Season 8. Okay, we have reached the penultimate position in this ranking, which belongs to Season 4. Season 4 basically only has great entries, and apart from maybe one character, simply doesn't miss. That one character I'm talking about is reanimated Nagato, who, don't get me wrong, definitely isn't bad by any means, but I'd say his jutsu are used quite a bit less compared to the other characters. Nonetheless, they're definitely very unique, as one literally turns you invisible and the other completely changes your ninjutsu arsenal. All the other characters in this season are some of the best in their respective classes though. Last Battle Sasuke brings to the game probably the best defensive jutsu out there, Susanoo Armor, which makes you completely invulnerable to any close range attack and certain jutsu while not slowing you down or giving you any other debuffs. Add on to that one of the coolest looking jutsu in Heavenly Handpower, and you get one of the best characters in Shinobi Striker. Green Ninja War Sakura and reanimated Itachi are two absolutely amazing heal types, both offering something completely else though. Sakura provides some of the best healing and buffing jutsu into the game, sticking to the main theme of heal types. On the other hand, reanimated Itachi is much more offense focused, offering probably the best damage dealing jutsu heal types have in Yasaka beats, while also having probably the most complicated but also one of the coolest ultimates in the game in Izanami. The final character of this season is Kawaki, whose reverse scale is one of the best close range jutsus in the game, while also being one of the easiest to use. His second jutsu, Strange Days, is the best option you got if you want to get as many ultimates as you possibly can during the duration of the game. And the ultimate Kawaki offers itself is nothing to scoff at either, since Ritual Destruction is one of the best guaranteed insta-kills ultimates in the game that also gives you a pretty big chance at killing off more than one enemy. Altogether, Season 4 slaps, and if it wasn't for how busted the next season was, it would have placed at the top. We have arrived at the end of the list, and the season I believe to be the best among all of them is Season 5. For those of you that have seen my video where I choose the best character for every class, this should be no surprise, as 3 out of 4 characters in that video come from this season. If you want to know exactly why I picked them, then I recommend watching that video, but let's just quickly summarize. Baryon Mode Naruto has I think the best close range attack in Baryon Bullet Barrage, and his second jutsu is basically an offensive version of Susanoo Armor. Coupled with an incredible ultimate, you have who I believe to be the best attack type. Six Paths Madara is by far the most offensively driven heal type in the game, offering arguably the best stun jutsu in the game with Thunder Blast, while also having an ultimate that basically guarantees you 4 kills if your team knows what they're doing. Ichiki may not have a single jutsu that completely stands out, but all of them are at least 8 out of 10, and his ultimate is up there as one of the best out of all the defense types. The other two characters in the season are definitely not to be underestimated either, especially Temari, who was the best range type in the game until Karma Progression Boruto decided to show up. But she still has an absolutely amazing toolset, with her secret technique being one of the best for crowd control. The last remaining character in this season is Konohamaru, who I do have to say is not the best, but he's not awful either. He offers some interesting jutsu, with one of them straight up being a fire turret and the other an ignitable pile of smoke. His ultimate also recently got buffed, so he's probably better than he used to be. Nonetheless, he does kind of stand out as the weakest character out of this otherwise goated season. Alright, that's all the seasons. I have to say that apart from the first and the last spot in this ranking, it was pretty hard to do. And I honestly wouldn't blame you for having it mixed up in almost any other way, because it comes down to personal preferences at that point. Nonetheless, let me know your own ranking in the comments, I'd love to see them. And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and hit the like button, it would be greatly appreciated, and I will see you all soon. Bye!